High Point University presents A Conversation with Alan Gant and Nito Cabane is a production of UNC-TV in association with High Point University.
Hello, I'm Nito Cabane, president of High Point University, and I welcome you to this program. This is going to be an extraordinary program with a great American, an outstanding business leader, a proud North Carolinian. His name is Alan Gant. He's executive chairman of Glen Raven Corporation. Alan, welcome to this program.
Nito, you're very kind. Thank you very much for having me here at High Point University. It's a real pleasure. And a beautiful campus. I was so excited to be here today. I haven't been on campus in some time. Absolutely magnificent, really beautiful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Alan, I have followed you for a long time. You are an inspiration to young people and all others alike. Your life has been filled with success and framed with significance. You have taken a family tradition of a company that was founded by your grandfather. Later, your uncle and your father ran the business, and then they entrusted it to you. And in the midst of all the economic difficulties, in the midst of NAFTA, in the midst of the Great Recession, most disrupted times in the last 80 years of America's history, Glen Raven kept going places and doing things and succeeding and serving. And you gotta tell us, what is your secret?
Well, it's a pretty simple secret. And as you well know, any successful operation depends on the people that are around you and the team that you have. There's no question that in our business, people are our most valuable asset. Anybody can go out and create the kind of facilities that anybody could build, but it's the people inside, it's the culture inside, and quite frankly, I've just been able to play a very small part of it. It's been fantastic, 139 years, and a company in which we thrive on change and innovation. In today's world, the world will change while we're having this conversation. And if you're not prepared to change, then you probably will lose. Mm-hmm. And so how do you instill in a group of people the desire to change, the will to change, the willingness to sacrifice for change, as long as it's for the better? Then change is absolutely a part of life today. And our team is the one who really has made this happen. And it's so, as you well know, here at High Point University, it's so wonderful to watch people succeed, to step back and to see how people innovate and how people bring new ideas to the table, how they address the immediacy of what needs to happen today, and at the same time think in terms of how am I going to be successful 100 years from now? Mm-hmm. Which is, so, I mean, the simple answer is a great team of people, and that's what made the difference.
But every team has to have a leader, clearly, and you've been an extraordinary leader, not only in your business, but I have watched you from near and afar as you have given your time and energy to good things in this state and beyond. You served on President Bush's Committee for Trade. You have received some of the greatest honors any North Carolinian has gotten, both in the sector itself and outside of the sector. But you know, Alan, you come from a rich heritage. You come from a heritage that has been influenced tremendously by your father and before him, your grandfather. I read with great interest a couple of books that have been written about Glen Raven, and I marked a couple of things. This is a paragraph that I marked here, and I read this with an intense interest about the relationship between a father and a son. This is you, and I quote, "My father was a business mentor for me from the time I was 5 years old. We would travel to New York together, and he would include me in business meetings. We had a wonderful relationship," you said of your dad. "It wasn't the typical father-son relationship of throwing the football in the backyard. It was more about learning about doing deals. That's pretty cool. Doing deals. Not making deals, but doing deals. At the age of 10, I rearranged the percentages on a deal he was negotiating. I thought it was too low. My father wanted a business partner from the time I was born. He truly loved this business, and so do I. Tell me about your father.
Oh, what a magnificent individual. He was born in 1898, was the youngest of 10 children, and came into the business in 1919, 1920. Absolutely incredible individual. He had me when he was 50, and then my little sister when he was 56. And I have two older sisters, one who passed away years ago and one who's 93 today. But a giant of a man. He had immense capacity to reach out to people. I'll never forget being in Israel and in Jerusalem and seeing him lead a group of, I guess 2,000 people in prayer for peace. And that was before he died in 1971. And so you think about where the world was and where Israel was in 1971. For a Christian to come to Israel and to go to the Wailing Wall and have that presence with people gives you some idea of the presence that he had. Hard for me to talk about.
Of course. It's always emotional because he was such a big influence in your life. What did you most admire about him? Was his communication skills, his ability to get along with people, his business acumen?
All the above, Nito. He was not only a father, he was a partner, and he was somebody that I looked up to from the day that I knew how to.
Yes.
Immense creativity. Really steeped in innovation and learned from others as quickly as anybody that I ever met in my life, and had the capacity to absorb. Never turned down the opportunity to go visit some particular facility because he would always learn something. He would always walk into some plant, and his observation skills were unique. I mean, just unique. And his ability to capture that idea and then turn it into a valuable asset or a valuable strategy. His love for people, he never met a stranger in his life, and just a fabulous individual. And you know, I just wish that every single person in the world could have an experience with a father that's half of what that I had. I'm blessed to have had. And my mother, it was exactly the same way. She was just a beautiful person who...
Now, your father's name was Alan.
Correct.
What was your mother's name?
Ethel.
Ethel.
Ethel Boone Gant. And what a lady.
And they were born...
Yes, he was born in Alamance County, and she was born in Alamance County as well.
And you were born in Alamance County?
I was actually born at Duke Hospital.
Was that right?
But then I later, the same day, was brought back to Burlington.
But then you saw the light and went to Carolina for college.
What can I say?
So really what you're talking about, when I hear you talk about your dad, I think about the prominent way that people can learn and learn continually. And that is not to lecture someone about something, but to model behaviors for them.
Right.
To be a hero, a model, and a mentor. Young people don't want crusades aimed at them. They want partnerships with them. And it sounds like that's what your dad did for you. You speak about innovation. I want to quote you. This is when you retired from being a full-time leader. You're obviously chairman of the board, but when you were full-time CEO, you said, that I'm quoting, and I don't know where this came from, perhaps a speech that you gave in Alamance County, but I'm quoting you. You said, "For as long as I can remember, Glen Raven, the name of your company, has been in a constant state of transformation. That's how we have remained relevant." I love the word relevance. That's how we've remained relevant in the markets we serve. And it also serves as a constant reminder that you have to drive change and not just respond or react to it. But Alan, how do corporations, individuals, nonprofits, universities change in the midst of the age of acceleration. That's where we are now. Age of acceleration. Everybody wants things faster, better, easier. How do you incite in people this desire to change when change is uncomfortable, when change brings fear with it?
Right. You know, the last word you just mentioned to me is a key for change, and that is, how do you remove fear from the environment in which people are in? And if you say to someone, we need to go from here to there, and there's no fear of losing your job, that we're going to do it together as a team. And you know this as well as anybody in the world, anything worth investing in, you really have to invest fully, including the core of yourself and the culture that you have. And so when that culture is at stake and you remove the fear and allow someone to think innovatively, then you have the beginnings of real creativity and real innovation. And so for Glen Raven, for decades, we have tried really hard to remove the fear of change. And so that people came to work every day going, how can I make it better? Not, I'm afraid if they do this, then I'm going to lose my job.
Or if I fail, they're going to fire me.
And how do you remove the taint from failure? If you don't fail every now and then, you never really learn.
That's right.
And so you have to let people, and it's one of the things, you well know, it's one of the things that's really hard to do, is to step back and watch somebody fail without losing the company, but you know that they're learning. You know that they're going to be a whole lot better off as you get around the corner. But you know, you've hit on the culture of Glen Raven, and that is the ability to change in the face of immense change in this world. And
Well,
I guess
NAFTA was a
absolutely.
big one.
Yes.
And you've got 3,000 employees now operating in
6 continents
all
around the
6
world.
continents in many countries. So it's a global operation. I think that if one takes risk out of life, one takes opportunity out of life. You agree with that?
Sure.
So it's not a question of risk avoidance. It's a question of risk management. That's what you've done, and you've done amply well. But the thing about change, Alan, is that for the timid, change is frightening. And for the comfortable, change is threatening.
Exactly.
So it's the confident person who sees change as opportunity.
That's exactly right. Yes, and it's confidence without arrogance.
Yes.
It's when you look
Arrogance leads to overconfidence.
Exactly. When you look at somebody like Steve Jobs, he never feared for a moment that he wouldn't be successful in what he was about. And you're exactly right. If you manage that the right way, then the opportunity comes around. Nito, let me come to a point that I think is so valid for North Carolina and for the United States. So when I step back from the fire and I say, why are we successful? Why is North Carolina successful? Why is this country successful? Why wasn't it Egypt? Why wasn't it the Greeks? Why wasn't it the Romans? Why wasn't it the Aztecs? I mean, when I think about those kinds of things, I think about, why is this country blessed with the business and the environment and the culture that we have? And I think it's pretty simple. I think it's the freedom that we have. I think that this country has been able to innovate for 300 years without shackles. If I would shackle you and I together right now, for the next 24 hours, we'd worry about getting the shackle off, even though we're close friends, because that shackle keeps us from producing. And I think that business, countries, environments, when they put shackles onto those things like bureaucracy, et cetera, then you really starve innovation. And in this country, we've been able to innovate for 300 years, unshackled. It's the danger that you and I see going forward is, oh my goodness, could we shackle this freedom that we have? And boy, that's a big issue from my perspective down the road.
That's a great way to put it because it's getting people to focus. Focus is more important than intelligence. So you only have so much energy, and the question is where are you putting that energy? And your point is when you're free to try, when you're free to innovate, you're putting the energy in something that could potentially be productive.
Exactly.
Instead of putting in something that's unproductive and useless.
Right.
Well, I'm interested in, Glen Raven is a very successful company, so let's cover 2 or 3 things very quickly. Number one, where does the name Glen Raven come from?
We don't know. We really don't know. My grandfather named it the company, and we think the first time we saw evidence of the name was his application for a post office that he owned at the time when he founded the company. And there's no other town, no other community in the world named Glen Raven. And so you could write on a letter, Alan Gant, Glen Raven, North Carolina, and the letter would get to us.
Wow.
And so we have no idea where he thought of the name or how to implement it, but that's the reason.
Very interesting.
Sure.
Most of us know Glen Raven as the manufacturer of that very famous, infamous product, a series of products called Sunbrella.
Yes.
How did that come about, and where are you in Sunbrella? I know you're in boats and airplanes and umbrellas and tents and on the list goes.
Well, it's a fantastic story. Back in 1880, when we started, when my grandfather started the company, we were making lots of heavy canvas, things that would go on top of wagons, you can imagine, and heavy cotton fabrics. And we made lots of awning fabrics, but they were made out of cotton. And cotton just would not hold up under sunlight degradation very well. And then in the mid-1950s, we began to use synthetic materials, and we found a way to impregnate in raw form the material. And we were able to come out in 1960 with Sunbrella, and my cousin Roger Gant Jr. was the real founder of Sunbrella, and he named it Sunbrella, thought of the name Sunbrella, which I think is absolutely a fabulous global name to this day. The brand, as you can imagine, is now almost 60 years old, which is awesome in itself. But the use of that technology changed the market dramatically, and from a no guarantee to a 5-year guarantee overnight. And then that outdoor product has now been brought inside, because what we learned on the outside was applicable to the inside.
As an upholstery and so on.
As upholstery, yes.
Yeah.
And so today we're in the marine business, the automotive business, the upholstery business, both inside and outside, casual furniture, as fine dining for your dining room as well. The brand is absolutely fantastic. Let me make another tie to you. We deal in things that have real value, and we deal in things that are branded because that brand stands for culture. And Glen Raven is all about how do we create value and make this a better world. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there are intrinsic opportunities, but we believe the world is better because of Glen Raven. It's a deeper meaning. And if you said to us, well, let me give you all the gold in the world, I'd say I'm not sure that's exactly what we want. We really want to make this a better world. And so how do we instill the culture and the quality of our brands to others? And so it's not just a dollar and cents environment. And when you take it that seriously, I mean, just like you and I were talking about a few minutes ago, when you head up a university and you have the chance to affect 5,000 kids, you've moved the needle, you know? And so for Glen Raven is, how do we move the needle? How do we instill that culture with others? And Sunbrella is obviously one of the greatest opportunities that we've ever had. And I'm happy to say we have another 25 brands that we're equally as excited about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you move the needle by number one, creating 3,000 jobs, supporting all these families, and that gives you resources to serve the community and help nonprofits and
Right.
and allow your leadership to be engaged and involved in good things to make the world a better place. So, not too long ago, you were in High Point at a very fabulous event, and you walked on the stage, and you were one of 4 or 5. You may have been the only living guy, I don't know, because typically they give them to people who have long gone. And you were inducted in the Home Furnishings Hall of Fame. How did that feel?
Oh, well, first of all, it was magical. It was fantastic. But it speaks volumes about the team that we have. I keep coming back that I've just been blessed to play a small part in this. It's credit to the team that we have. Our CEO, Lee Bamick, and the entire team that we have come together in a way that is unique. If you come to Glen Raven, you will notice immediately there's something different about this company. There's something different. Just like when you come to North Carolina, there's something different about North Carolina. It's great. When you come to this country, I will never forget being on the Queen Mary in 1958, coming to this country, and my father got us up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch everybody who was in steerage to see the Statue of Liberty. Unbelievable. And so you think about that, about how great this country is, and you think about North Carolina, and you think about Glen Raven. We don't want to be just a spot in time. We want to make it better. And when you say, how was that evening in High Point? It was a credit to our team. Our team is what made the difference. And no one person, as you well know, no one person can do it. If you don't have a team, then you're out.
We're as good as the people that we surround ourselves
Absolutely.
with. Who you spend time with is who you become, basically.
Exactly.
Alan, I want to ask you a couple of questions. First about your own family. There's Alan 3, right? You're
Correct.
Alan Jr., Alan Gant Jr. is Alan Gant 3rd.
Right.
You have other children?
Yes, Grayson Ellington Hampson is our daughter and married to Nathan, and we have a grandson, 5 years old, Jacob, and my beautiful wife, Denise.
Denise, yes. That's great. I saw somewhere where a United States of America flag made by Glen Raven made it all the way to the moon.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, we made the fabric for both flags on the moon. We made in Burnsville, North Carolina, and at that particular time, we made the majority of the flag business in the United States. And so when it came time to fold one up and take it up there, then we didn't sew the fabric together, but in red, white, and blue. But we made all the fabric for those. You know, it's interesting that you would mention that, because in 9/11, this world stood still for several days. And for 4 days or 5 days, we didn't get a single order. And for a company our size, we were really concerned.
Single order of flags?
No, single order of business.
Period.
Of business. You know, we just, no business at all. And so you really become concerned. And then we got one of the largest orders we've ever received in history for flags.
Wow. Wow.
Just incredible.
Wow.
So America was begging for the signs of patriotism, the red, white, and blue.
Yes.
And we were so excited. I mean, it was just absolutely spectacular. Really was beautiful.
That example is pregnant with meaning, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
So the flag that ended up on the moon, though.
Yes.
2 questions. Did it stay on the moon?
Yes, it's there.
It still stayed on the moon. And did it have a little sign at the back of it said "Made by Glen Raven in North Carolina"?
I don't know that it did, but but for sure it's
You,
there.
you'd like to have had that flag back, though, wouldn't you? And frame it and put it in your lobby.
That would be nice.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
No question. But it's there for the right reason.
Yes,
and
of course.
I'm happy for it to be there.
Of course, of course. Your grandfather used to say, look, the three ways to do this business, and you're going to do them all. Invest in technology, profit from it, and reinvest in more technology. We had a gentleman called Dr. Michio Kaku. He's one of the world's leading physicists. And he was talking about what we all know about now as AI, artificial intelligence. Sure. I want to ask you, though, about your opinion. All the artificial intelligence in the world could never match true wisdom. In other words, there's no such thing as artificial wisdom. So all the technology in the world could allow us to do things more efficiently, more with greater productivity, a better cost, and less time. But what about wisdom? When I read in these books about your grandfather, your father, when I hear you talk about your own team, as you call them, your own associates, your own employees, you really talk about wisdom. For example, I've learned about a sign which bears your company's logo, is framed, and it was intended to hang on the wall of an office. I don't know where it is now, but somewhere in your company. And it was one of your dads, I suspect. Your dad was referred to as Mr. Allen, is that right? Right. Favorite expressions, and it captures at least part of the unique spirit of your family of employees. And it reads, and I quote, "The priceless ingredient of every product in the marketplace is the honor and integrity of its maker." I want to say that one more time. Right. The priceless ingredient of every product in the marketplace. Doesn't matter whether you made it, somebody else. You're referring to any product in the marketplace. The priceless ingredient in that product is the honor and integrity of its maker. What does that mean to you?
It's the essence of what Glen Raven is about. The honor and integrity of the business is the foundation by which the culture is built. You're going to do it right regardless. No matter how much it hurts, you're going to do it right.
It being anything. The product, the service, the relationship.
Whatever it is. It is. We're not going to take a back seat to anything. We're going to absolutely invest. And proper investment in good businesses yields to fantastic results. And if you're not willing to invest, as so many people today are, so many businesses, so many states, so many towns in this country.
Shortcuts, delay.
Shortcuts, taking the short-term view. This past retreat we had for our board, for instance, the question was, what do we need to do to be successful for the next 35 years? Not the next quarter, not the next 6 months. And if you don't have the honor and the integrity to make those statements and to stick by it, then let's come back to a question we talked about earlier. Then you put shackles on the business. You put fear back into the business. So if you really are going to be serious about removing fear, then you better make sure that the honor and integrity of the products and everything that you do around it is the same. If you're right, terrific. If you're wrong, admit it, pay whatever it is, and then move on down to making it better and learn from those experiences. So many times, for instance, warranties. What do warranties mean? Well, they're only as good as the integrity of the person that gives that warranty. We warrant things, and we mean it, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure that they're right.
You honor the promise.
Exactly, and the integrity of the product. But I think that comes from very early on in our history.
Yes, that's in the roots of
That's
the
exactly
belief
right.
system.
That's right.
But you see, Alan, we live in a world today where it takes faith and courage. It takes faithful courage to do what you're talking about, because so many companies, especially public companies, live quarter to quarter. They have pressures of the street. They have
Right.
pressures of issuing guidance. They have pressure of shareholders wanting immediate returns. So it takes solid leadership, faithful leadership to say, of course we're going to take care of the transactional matters of today, but we have to also be focused on the transformational matters of the tomorrows of this organization. And companies that do that, organizations that do that, live longer and better.
Right.
But as you know, the average tenure of a CEO is pretty darn short. You've had the privilege of a familial investment of energy, belief system, values, and certainly fiscal resources to make that happen. And because of that, you've grown globally. And I love what you said about global growth. You said the company focused on value-added products and markets in which it could compete based on technical superiority, on branding and collaborative development with customers and trade partners. Most importantly, Glen Raven expanded around the world to Europe, Asia, India, Brazil, not in search of lower cost labor, but to take advantage of growing markets and to tap into the expertise, creativity, work ethic, and aspirations gained from a diverse global workforce. We had a guy called Tom Friedman on campus. And Tom, as you know, some years ago wrote a book called The World is Flat.
Right.
And what he was suggesting is that, you know, we got to work with people in every quadrant of the world. And by the way, every quadrant of the world has some intelligence, expertise, frames of reference. We can all learn from each other. We can build partnerships. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and in today's world, think about where we are today and the relationships that are going on in the political environment that we're in today. Hopefully those people that we do business with, we won't have war. We'll have peace. It's very difficult to have a meaningful business and have acrimony. If it's not a meaningful business if you have that acrimony. There's something wrong. And so absolutely that is part of it. And you notice the title of that book is called Transformations, and how you transform those things at times. I think fortunately or unfortunately today's trade, for instance, we're not taking advantage of opportunities that are arising. And here's something else. Going back to our core value of investing, if you chase cost, now costs are important. You have to be competitive. We understand that.
You have to be efficient.
But if that's your only goal, then you're going to be very volatile on your supply chain, and you'll never deliver the honor and integrity to the customer, because it'll be made by somebody else a week later because they'll make it for a cheaper price. And so, again, come back to the core. What are the core things that make you different? And
be consistent.
And be consistent about it.
Yeah.
You can't be this way this month and then the other way the other month. And
so Alan, if you're speaking to a group of our students here, you know, our students here are exposed to so much in terms of life skills. So we bring some of the greatest minds in the world to come, the co-founder of Netflix, co-founder of Apple, all of them teach here on a regular basis. And you wanted to give these students, honest to goodness, 3 pieces of advice that can give them wings, that can expand their mind and make their spirit so willing to go out there and make a difference. What would those 3 things be, and not necessarily in order?
Well, that's a $1 million question.
Yes, yes, yes.
You've summed it up pretty well. We have something at Glen Raven we call objective accountability. It's pretty simple. I want to know where you are, where you're going, and how you're going to get there. And unless you understand those three things, you're probably going to make some pretty significant mistakes about your travels and your creating of knowledge and where you're going to go in your life.
Well, those are principles of strategic planning, strategic thinking. Yes,
it's exactly right. And most young folks today don't really know what their track record looks like, but their track record actually is much better than they give themselves credit for. But certainly having the honor and integrity is a foundation. And if you don't have that, then you really are missing the boat.
Ethics come first.
Absolutely. It's not a given because it's not there for everybody, but it certainly is a given when it comes to success. Secondly, all the education that I can stand. And the reason is because every time you're exposed to a different class, a different discipline arises, and your mind learns how to calculate different things. So you may not be a musician down the road, but take a class in music because you will learn something that is outside your comfort zone, which is just there. And so many times I see so many people allow others to stand in their way. So many times I see people dragged down by the dogma of others. And if you really are committed and willing to invest, then it will come.
And you mean education, you mean it in its broadest sense, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You learn in school, you learn in college, but you also learn from your friends and the choices you make and the environments in which you reside.
You know, the question you ask has also a very deep meaning. If you were to draw a graph and you would trace technology from, let's just say, 1400, when you got to the Industrial Revolution at 1875, you'd see innovation go up through the roof. And now we're doubling knowledge, every 6 months or whatever the number is. But it's astronomical what has happened. But what have we done in education? Have we trained the minds of today how to handle the instantaneous information that's going on? I would contend to you that we haven't.
Think of social media. Think of all that stuff coming at us. Yes.
When the Second World War came along, the battle was over, and we saw it on a newsreel 6 months later, kind of thing. You know, today we watch it take place as it's taking place. But have we trained ourselves how to handle that data? Have we trained ourselves how to look at metadata, and how do we transform that into usable stuff as opposed to
raw data?
Just raw stuff that's just now cluttering our brains with unusable stuff that now controls us as opposed to it being a competitive strategy. You know, which is.
Yeah, you know, I told an audience this morning in Washington D.C. I said, you know, we are the most connected society in history when you think about FaceTime and emails and texting and all the rest, and yet we're the most alienated society in history. We have all kinds of social challenges, even some small degrees of mental illness or challenges come from the fact that we become alone and therefore perhaps lonely, and therefore we become somewhat challenged by a disrupted society that demands that I behave this way or that way, or that I respond so quickly and so on. And that is a very, very tough thing, you know, in terms of development and maturation. Colleges today, as you know, no longer can simply teach the content of a subject without balancing it off with the context in which this information must be used. I like to say the two most important words in the English language are the words influence and impact. You know, at the end of the day, the importance of your life or anyone's life is defined by the impact you leave behind and the individuals you've influenced along the way.
Right.
And that's leadership, isn't it?
Sure.
You kept talking about your team. You gave credit to the team. But the team has been influenced by leadership at the top. And the team, therefore, has been impacted by the values, the ethics, the culture of an institution.
Right.
So you talked about the fact that you got to get all the education that you can. And what is your view of higher education and where it's going? I mean, it is at a place now that is semi-disrupted. Media constantly questions the value of higher education. And in that context, I mean, four-year colleges. We have a lot of respect at Hype University for technical institutions, for community colleges. They serve a beautiful purpose. They prepare students for certain careers, but that's mostly in the area of training. Four-year colleges are in the business of education, right? Educo comes from the Greek derivative, which is to change from within. To use your word, transformation,
Right.
growth as a person. But if we keep sort of asking those questions and not coming up with answers, I worry about the day that so much of this will get all gargled up and people start really believing it. When I know every day what happens in the lives of students who receive true education. You know, training shows you the how, education teaches you the why. And the why takes a little longer.
Sure.
Right? Because it's an evolutionary process. Right. What is your personal view? You've been involved extensively in education, community level and university level, and certainly now you're very involved in elementary education, and you worry about, are they getting the education they need
Sure.
early on?
Yeah, I really believe that the early education is one of the things that we need to do more of, and a lot of. Our grandson started a little school when he was 18 months old, and I was going, oh my goodness, is this the right thing to do at age 18 months? It was absolutely the right thing to do. It's the one thing, though, Nito, that I'm...
Was that a boarding school by any chance?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, good.
No. But that's one of the things that I'm excited about in North Carolina. I don't exactly remember the Constitution of North Carolina, but I think one of the privileges that was talked about was education, that people would be made available in education in North Carolina. North Carolina is blessed with having immense opportunities and immense resources when it comes to education. I, like you, I believe that there is immense change taking place in education today. And you can't be everything to everybody. And the world is, as you say, becoming so connected that it's the exposure to data, how you understand that data, and then how you use that data. And education can teach us how to do a better job of that. And with it, we will not be able to handle the change that's going to take place in culture. Because I think that the culture of this country and this state could change, and it could change not for the better if we don't prepare ourselves for handling that. The resources and assets are readily available in North Carolina. We've got terrific assets in North Carolina. The Consolidated University, as well as the independent colleges, High Point University,
35
Elon.
of them. 35 independent colleges in the state.
Absolutely.
Do great work. 17 universities, public universities.
Sure.
We're gifted in that area.
And it's really, what it comes down to is the engagement of students. I know at Elon University they work immensely on engagement of the student. And isn't that what we're doing? We're helping the mind create and understand and be able to be innovative in itself. And so that's part of it. But you know, education in North Carolina is going to take some immense leadership to be successful.
And you focused on third grade, for example, education. So what educate us about what the issues are there and why are you so hopeful about turning those matters around?
Early on, the individual, every time they learn something, they become a little prejudiced. It could be a good, or maybe a better word is bias. They develop biases. And so at the early age, they're like a sponge. The mind will absorb and learn at such an incredible rate. I mean, why can children learn 5 languages when they're 5 years old? Because it's just
Their formative years.
In formative years, yes. Exactly. And when they become 15, it's a different story. And 30, it's a different story, altogether. And so I really believe that is one of the grassroots things that we've got to do a better job in. As we funnel that through the educational process, K through 12 becomes really transformational. If we don't get that right, K through 12, then our higher education system is not going to be productive as well. The product that you take in at High Point University is not going to be prepared for the 22nd century if that mind isn't developed.
Yes.
And so
foundational skills, all of that.
Absolutely. And we've got to pay some attention for very early childhood development and how that goes along. And you know something? I don't think that people think about education as an economic engine, but all of our jobs depend on the capacity of the thinking brain. And as I tell people at Glen Raven, the only thing we need is what's between your ears. That's
the brain trust of
that's
any
the
organization.
magic of the whole moment. And how do I entrust the entire company to you?
Sure.
That's the deal.
Or the entire country, or the entire state.
And so how do we take these young, innocent minds and give them the capacity to be making really great decisions?
Yes.
Drugs, alcohol, whatever subject you want to bring up. If those minds aren't prepared to make those decisions, then the results is usually not very good.
Yes.
Which is so very unfortunate. But North Carolina is right. We have so many things going on the right way. I'm so excited about things that are happening in North Carolina from a business standpoint. We're not laden with debt. We have incredible resources, natural resources. We have the best resource in the world, which is great, smart people. We have great colleges and universities. We have all these things that are right. I just hope and pray that we have the leadership that will continue to galvanize those things together to make this, quite frankly, the best state in the union.
And people are moving here from all over the country.
Absolutely.
We've got the ocean, the mountains, we've got the 4 seasons, we've got I, like you, I'm bullish about North Carolina and its future. In the few moments we have left, Alan, I've got to get your take on this. America was built by small business, really, in the main part. And small business is dependent on people's willingness to be entrepreneurial, to take a risk, to invest resources, to have work ethic, to build something, to be willing to fail along the journey towards success. What is it you think that, especially young people who want to start a business, what are the ingredients, what are the traits, what are the characteristics that would allow someone to succeed, given this environment that is ever-changing, moving at a rapid speed, the age of acceleration, as we referred to earlier?
You know, one word that we haven't talked about this afternoon is communication. And I'm a firm believer that unless you have the ability to communicate, then someone might be internally another Einstein. But unless they have the capacity to communicate that to others. And so many times at our company, we will take an English major and teach them all the chemistry or technology that we need because they have the capacity to communicate and to communicate with customers. And so if I were advising somebody, a young person starting out, I'd say really get a handle on communication and how to communicate.
It's the one thing that emphasize the most in the freshman class at High Point University, called the President's Seminar on Life Skills. The first class about beliefs, believe in yourself, believe in your system, believe in your capacity, etc. The second was about communication. How do you build bridges of understanding with other people, right? And all communication begins with ourselves. We have to communicate with ourselves. Garbage in, people will say garbage out. That's not true. Garbage in, garbage stays.
Right.
So if you communicate with yourself that you can't, you'll be right. And one has to believe in the art of the possible. So your point is, an entrepreneurial thinker has to be a good communicator. What else?
Well, back to the integrity. If you don't have that, then you'll never find a partner or other people that'll work for you and work with you. And the fear of failure is the one element that comes back. And how that's talked about, whether it's confidence, whether it's not having a fear of failure or managing that risk profile, that is the real. That's, I mean, how many people do you see in your lifetime that you know have the capacity to shoot the moon and never will because they won't step out? And it's that lack of confidence. And so many people, this is back to education, so many people lose that because of shackles and being pushed down early on. And they develop a bias of, I'm safer by being quiet.
Yeah.
And so many times, and I know it's happened for you, people, there'll be a problem and you'll step back and say, bring me a solution. You know the solution, but bring me a solution because you want that person to learn.
The learning process.
The learning process of stepping out into the cold and saying, hey, this is really important.
So Alan, I have a very good friend. His name is Daniel Lubitsky. Daniel Lubitsky is the one who founded the company that sells all the Kind bars.
Oh, yeah.
The snacks called Kind. And I love what he says. He says, I am not an optimist. I am an actionist. And his point is what you just made, that so many people have ideas, but they do not act on them.
Right.
So many people are highly motivated to be successful, but they do not take the first step towards making that happen. And there are lots of reasons why they don't: fear of failure, they don't have confidence, they don't know how to communicate. But those are the elements that lead to success. And as you said early on in our hour, this country has tremendous opportunities for those who wish to take them, because, as you put it, we have the freedom to try something, to be somebody, to do something, to give more, be more, serve more. Alan, I got to tell you that our hour has come to an end, believe it or not. But I've learned a lot from you in this short period of time. I've learned that all things are possible for those who want to work hard and smart. I've learned that leadership is all about guiding others and giving them credit where credit is due, hence you talk about your team. I've learned that good business and solid business are dependent sometimes on what we learn and who we learn it from. In your case, your father was had a huge impact in your life. I've also learned that there are some challenges, that we have to be big boys and girls and admit the fact that there are some challenges in society, in our country, in our world. But they're not impossible, that we can go on and do something with them. I wish everybody could read these two books about transformations and about the Raven story, because inherent in them is the story of America. Having an idea, working hard, taking a risk, get up in the morning and go do something, by golly, and then enjoy the gifts and create jobs, with the success of the business. I'm honored to call you my friend. I am grateful for all the leadership that you bring forth to this state and to this country. I'm very pleased that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to be with us today at High Point University, to do this interview, but also to have dinner with our students and to answer the questions and to be available to them. You're a great mentor. You know your stuff, and you're able to interpret it in ways that others can latch to it and understand it and then do something about it. So thank you so much for being with us, Alan. I wish you greater success and, more importantly, a continued journey of significance as you go in this next chapter of your life. You and Denise, traveling the world, being great ambassadors, but also guiding us all in all the efforts that we have.
You're very kind. Got a great family and a great team, and thank you very kindly for the opportunity to be with you today. And I look forward to sharing with those students tonight. That'll be fun to hear, because I learn more from the young folks than anything else, and it'll be exciting to see that. Thanks for all that you do, Nito. I mean, you provide a tremendous amount of leadership for this state and for the country. And you're right. Without the leadership, we would all be in abyss. And that is important. But if you invest, it becomes magical.
That's the truth, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Always.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.